The first time I saw her in that room, sparkling in her designer gown, I didn't think much of it. She was flawless, powerful, and completely untouchable in her elite circle. But that night, as the $800 million deal was on the line, her deal, I became invisible, or so she thought. Please do make sure to like, comment and subscribe so you don't miss our stories. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know I was the one who owned the very company that would sign her into the biggest deal of her life. And she, standing there in her arrogance, raised a glass of wine, and poured it right over me, right in front of everyone. "Unworthy," she sneered. "You don't belong here. You're nothing in my world." I froze for a moment, feeling the warm splash of wine on my suit, but then something inside me snapped. That humiliation, that disrespect, it lit a fire in me that I couldn't ignore. And what I did next changed everything. Because sometimes, the world doesn't just hand you revenge, you have to take it, carefully, methodically, until it's perfect. By the end of that night, she would wish she had never underestimated me. And I, quietly, would have the satisfaction of watching her own arrogance crumble, brick by brick. This is the story of how I turned the tables on the woman who thought she owned the room, and learned that power isn't always in who raises the glass, but in who controls the deal. I remember walking into the gala that night like any other CEO. My company, a global conglomerate worth billions, was hosting an exclusive networking event for the world's elite. I wore a tailored midnight blue suit, the kind that whispers wealth without shouting it. And then I saw her. Miranda, sharp, elegant, untouchable. She held court in the middle of the room, commanding attention with her laugh, her gestures, and the kind of arrogance only people who've never had to wait for anything can develop. She was there to finalize her company's acquisition deal, or so everyone thought she was signing with a rival firm. She didn't know the truth. I was the owner, the one behind the signatures, the final approvals. And I was invisible to her. That night, she was on a power high. She scanned the room like a queen surveying her kingdom. And then, she saw me, or rather, she thought she saw a nobody. "Who is that?" she whispered to her assistant. "I have no idea, but he looks pathetic," the assistant said. Perfect. That was all I needed. I watched as she strutted past, not recognizing me, not seeing the man whose empire would bankroll her dreams. And then came the moment I'll never forget. She raised her glass, looked me straight in the eye, and in front of everyone, she said, "You don't belong here. Not in my world." And then, God help me, she poured red wine over me. The room went silent. My suit was soaked, my pride shredded. Laughter bubbled up from her circle, cruel and sharp. She thought she had won. She thought she had humiliated me. But she had no idea what was coming. I excused myself calmly, my mind already calculating, planning, and weaving a trap she would never see coming. Because revenge isn't a rash act, it's an art form. And I intended to paint a masterpiece. By the time I returned to that room, everything would have changed. She would bow, not to me, but to the consequences of underestimating me. And that's when the real game began. I stepped out of the main hall, my suit dripping red wine, my pride stinging worse than the liquid that soaked my chest. The laughter, the whispers, the smirks, they all echoed in my head. But I didn't panic. I didn't react. Because I had one rule: never let them see you break. I ducked into the private lounge of the venue, a space few knew existed. I needed a moment, a single second to plan. And in that second, I realized the truth: this wasn't just about the wine. This wasn't about humiliation. This was about power. She had just shown me, in front of everyone, that she thought she could control the room, and me. And I realized, if I was going to crush her, I had to do it slowly, elegantly, in a way she'd never see coming. I pulled out my phone and made a simple call. "Yes," I said, voice calm, confident, ice running through my veins. "Activate the deal. Full approval. Everything is ready for Miranda's company. Make it official immediately. No exceptions." The assistant on the other end paused. "But sir." "No buts," I interrupted. "She thinks she owns the deal. Let her enjoy the illusion while it slips through her fingers." I hung up. The plan was set. And then I did something that would later feel like the perfect prelude to the storm. I went back into the gala. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. Not because she recognized me, no, that would come later, but because I walked in drenched, unflinching, like nothing could touch me. Her smirk faltered, just for a second. And in that second, I knew she had underestimated me. She raised her glass again, a mock toast. To the little man, she whispered, the words dripping with venom. I smiled. To your victory, I said, voice calm, almost gentle. And then I turned away. She didn't understand yet. She didn't see the trap I had laid. But soon, she would. The next days were a blur for her. She floated on cloud nine, believing her $800 million deal was her crowning achievement. She told everyone, laughed, celebrated. But behind the scenes, I was already moving pieces on a board she couldn't even see. Every contract she signed, every clause she celebrated, had already been rewritten. Every handshake she cherished, every congratulatory speech she gave, was already a thread in the net I was weaving. And the best part? She had no idea that the man she humiliated was the man controlling her fate. I watched her through emails, through meetings, through the people she trusted. Every arrogant comment she made, every dismissive glance, fuel. Fuel for the fire that would soon consume her. By the end of the week, Miranda would learn what it truly meant to be unworthy. And I would enjoy every second of her unraveling. Because revenge, when done right, is the sweetest victory. For 5 days straight, Miranda was the queen of the business world. Her picture was everywhere, magazines, interviews, online panels. She strutted into every room like she had personally bought the air the rest of us were breathing. She didn't know that every accomplishment she celebrated, every champagne bottle she popped, every congratulations she reveled in, was already under my signature. Her $800 million deal? Approved. Finalized. Filed. And sitting neatly under my name, with a clause she never thought to read. A clause that would bankrupt her image, if I chose to pull it. But that wasn't the plan. No, my plan was slow. Silent. Beautiful. The first crack. On the 5th morning, my phone buzzed. Sir, she's requesting a meeting with the CEO. She wants to meet the man who changed her life. I leaned back in my leather office chair, smirking. She wanted to meet the CEO? She didn't know she had already met him. She had poured wine on him. She had laughed at him. She had called him unworthy. Tell her, I said, the CEO will meet her. But not today. Make her wait. Make her hungry. The assistant chuckled. Gladly, sir. This was the moment I had been savoring. The beginning of her itch. The beginning of her subtle panic. Her ego needed validation. And I would starve it. Influence was her oxygen. Without it, she suffocated. And that's exactly what began happening. At a private brunch with her socialite friends, someone leaked the rumor. The CEO hasn't acknowledged her deal at all. Not even a comment. Her friends gasped. Her rivals smirked. Her supporters shifted nervously. And Miranda? She froze. Because she was used to worship. Not silence. She excused herself, called her assistant, and hissed. Why is the CEO ignoring me? I listened to the recording later. Every crack in her voice fed my satisfaction. The assistant replied coolly. He's extremely busy. Busy? No. I was savoring. She finally got what she wanted, a scheduled meeting. But instead of meeting her in a regular office, I arranged it in the executive boardroom. 20-foot ceilings. A long black marble table. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the city. A room designed to intimidate. She walked in wearing a sharp white suit, heels clicking in that confident rhythm she thought made people bow. Her assistant whispered, "The CEO will arrive shortly." She nodded, practicing her smile in the reflection of the glass. But behind that smile, I saw it. A flicker of fear. She finally felt small. Good. She Saturday. Crossed her legs. Uncrossed them. Checked her phone. Checked it again. I kept her waiting 22 minutes. Every second intentional. Then the double doors opened. She turned her head sharply to impress. And froze. Because it was me. The man she humiliated. The man she insulted. The nobody she poured wine on. Her face went white. Why she stammered. Yes, I said calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table. I'm the CEO. And the owner. And the man behind your $800 million deal. She swallowed hard. But why didn't you say anything? I met her eyes. Because you never asked. The silence in that room was heavy, thick, suffocating. Exactly what I wanted. Then I leaned back and added. And because you only talk to people you think are worthy. She looked like she had been slapped. I placed a folder on the table. Her contract. The one she bragged about. Posted about. Celebrated like a crown. Miranda, I said, almost gently, did you read section 14C of your deal? She blinked. I skimmed. You didn't. My voice cut clean. She slowly opened the folder. Pulled out the addendum she never noticed. Section 14C. Upon approval, the acquired company will be restructured. All current leadership is subject to immediate evaluation and replacement. Her hands shook. You planned this, she whispered. Oh, absolutely, I said with a smile. You humiliated me publicly. I simply returned the favor professionally. Her throat tightened. I'll lose my company, she breathed. I leaned forward. You won't lose it. Relief washed over her face. You already lost it. That's when the tears filled her eyes. Not loud ones. Not dramatic ones. Silent. Humiliated. Broken. The same way she had tried to break me. She stood up abruptly. This can't be happening. I worked for everything I have. You ruined everything. I let her shout. Let her exhaust herself. Then I calmly stood. Miranda, do you know what the most painful part of what you did was? She looked at me, tears streaking down her perfect makeup. You didn't even see me, I said. You didn't see a man. You didn't see a human being. You saw status. And when you didn't see it, you destroyed what you did see. She sank into her chair, sobbing openly now. Please, don't take everything from me, she whispered. I'm begging you. And that's when satisfaction washed through me. Not because she begged, but because she finally understood. Power is not in the circle you brag about. It's in the person you underestimate. I had two options. Destroy her completely. Or let her live with the humiliation. I chose the latter. Public destruction is temporary. But shame? Shame lingers. I kept her company. I kept the deal. I kept my power. But I issued one final order. Miranda will remain employed, but at entry-level advisory, under a new executive. She would work under people she once mocked. Sit in rooms she once dominated. Take orders from those she once belittled. And her elite circle? They vanished. No one stood by her. No one defended her. The queen became the servant. Justice. Months passed. My life flourished. The company exploded with growth. And her former business? Under my direction, became a global titan. One morning, as I walked through the executive floor, I saw her in the hallway, carrying files, wearing simple office attire. No arrogance. No ego. Just humility. She paused, lowered her eyes, and whispered, "Good morning, sir." And for the first time, she meant it. I nodded politely and kept walking. I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't need to crush her further. I had already won. And that victory was deeper, calmer, sweeter than any outburst or display. Because true revenge, true justice, is when the person who looked down on you must look up to you forever.